Welcome everyone to OnPodcast, the on Microsoft podcast, where we talk about Microsoft stuff on a podcast. I'm your host today, Kareem Anderson, and I'm joined by.
David Allen. I hope everybody's doing well.
Yeah, we are back with another week of news. Despite what you guys might be hoping for, we will not be talking very much about Apple this week, unfortunately. So if you want to get
I'm
that news, you got to
disappointed.
go. You're gonna have to scour the internet. I'm sure maybe one or two people are talking about it somewhere. Here, though, we will be talking about Microsoft facing its ninth outage in 8 months. Microsoft 365 having an issue with staying up, maybe there's a pill for that or something. We are also talking about Microsoft and Oracle having some secret announcement that they eventually just told everyone about, which is two giant cloud services coming together, which could be trouble for AWS or Google Cloud. We'll see how that plays out. Starfield will
Sounds like
soon
more
getting
legal trouble to me.
I mean, Microsoft invites it. It's like a WWE challenge at this point. Bring it on. Starfield will soon get a DLSS upscaling, field of view slider, ultra wide monitor support, and a bunch of other things. So they are working fast to address a lot of consumer feedback. The EU is also planning to file a formal complaint against Microsoft Teams bundling, despite Microsoft saying, "Hey, we are going to unbundle if that's okay with you guys." They said no. Xbox Game Pass Core set to make its debut tomorrow with 36 games. So for those of you who have a free weekend to do stuff, get ready. OneDrive will also be getting better offline functionality. We find that out through a Microsoft 365 roadmap. We'll tell you all about the details and what that means for you. Bing Chat shows itself off during Monday Night Football. So those of you who happen to be Microsoft fans and watch football, you might have come across that. And then last, I think that should be it for our headlines. We're also going to be going into our main discussion. For those of you who are Surface hardware fans, we'll be talking all about Surface hardware. We may, and this is where I said we won't be talking much about Apple, but we maybe do a quick comparison about presentations, whether or not some of these presentations should be press releases and how they differ between how Microsoft presents theirs and how Apple will be presenting theirs or presented theirs this week. We'll be covering kind of some details that leaked, specific details about the hardware that will be shown, the end of Surface Duo, the original Surface Duo, and some of the upgrades coming to, or some of the things that will be missing from this presentation uh, this week. So let's get into it. What is our first headline, my friend?
Well, I'm going to jump right in and get on Microsoft 365's back about their ninth outage in 8 months. Basically, what we saw was Teams was having some issues earlier this week, and that's not too uncommon to have issues once in a while that affect a small group of people when you have a client base of millions and millions of people. But this kind of brought to attention that there's been a few outages going on with the Microsoft 365 cloud. In January, they had email and Teams access was having some problems. In February, they had a global outage for email and Teams, and in April, they had two incidences where people could not access Microsoft 365 applications. They had a similar issue in May in the UK where those folks over there could not access their applications. And then in June, they had a little bit of issues with a little bit of everything: Outlook issues, OneDrive issues for business, SharePoint, and Teams. Now, when you first hear about this, you think, well, Microsoft needs to shape up. And I think, that's true. Maybe they need to work out a few kinks. But along the same lines, I think this is a reminder to people that we are functioning in a cloud. We're functioning in an environment where there are moving parts, there are external factors involved, such as DDoS attacks, etc. That's kind of the reality of the internet. And I think sometimes we take some of these big cloud services for granted that they're always going to be 24/7, 365, no matter what. And I know it's important for businesses out there to stay online, ours included, but I think we all have to remember it is the internet, it is moving parts, there are unknown external factors that become involved. It's just part of it. So, I hope Microsoft can improve it, but along the same lines, I think we have to be willing to tolerate a little bit as well.
Yeah, well, let's see if my next headline might help with that. We have Microsoft and Oracle teased some database information, and then early this week, and then pretty much, or early, yeah, early this week, and then a couple days later, they just came out and said it. Microsoft and Oracle have announced Oracle Database at Azure. It's a solution for running Oracle database services on Microsoft Azure. Um, with the introduction of this new database at Azure, Oracle and Microsoft are helping customers accelerate their migration to the cloud. Again, Microsoft has typically been known as a hybrid solution, whereas AWS has been a full do-it-yourself kind of thing. So it looks like they're getting some help from Oracle to continue that trend, specifically for Oracle users as well. So they can modernize their IT environments and take advantage of Azure's infrastructure, tooling, and services. Customers will benefit from this new partnership with more options to move their Oracle databases to the cloud, the highest level of Oracle database performance, scale, and availability, as well as features and pricing parity. So you get more, hopefully, for your dollar. They'll be getting a bit more simplicity between using the two solutions, security and latency of a single operating environment, data center within Azure. The ability to build new cloud native applications using OCI and Azure technologies, including Azure's best-in-class AI services, which again, this is Microsoft extending its Copilot, enterprise Copilot to everybody, and the assurance of an architecture that is tested and supported by two of the most trusted names in the cloud. As a result of this expanded partnership, customers will have the choice to deploy their Azure services with their fully managed Oracle database services, all within a single data center, including support for Oracle Data database services, Oracle's autonomous database services, and Oracle's real application clusters, RACs. Oracle and Microsoft have also developed a joint support model to provide rapid response and resolution for mission-critical workloads. Additionally, Oracle and Microsoft will have significantly simplified the purchasing and contracting processes, which I think is the biggest thing from this deal, is having one way to pay for this joint venture. And they'll be doing it through obviously database at Azure, through the Azure Marketplace, leveraging their existing Azure agreements. They will also be able to use their existing Oracle database licenses, benefits including bring your own license and Oracle Support Rewards program. Oracle will operate the managing of the OCI services directly within Microsoft's data center globally, and that will begin, I think, starting with North America and Europe to start off with. So for those of you who happen to be Oracle cloud users that happen to need a few Microsoft 365 applications or platforms, it looks like this combined venture will now give you both, hopefully for one single price and one area to kind of access both.
I think that's a big deal. I know there's a lot of bigger businesses out there that have the Oracle infrastructure in place, and even in talking to people in the business world that I know, the struggle that they've always had is we've got this data in a database, but how can we manipulate it with other platforms and services? How can we connect it to a Windows server driven website, for example, or how can we access that data over a Microsoft network? And then they have to build their own infrastructure to do that, because for those that don't understand, Oracle is a little bit of a kind of like the Mac Windows comparison of PCs. Oracle does its own database. It's not the typical MySQL or MariaDB that you see in typical WordPress sites, for example, that a lot of people are familiar with. So as long as the regulators can stay off this and somebody doesn't raise a red flag going, okay, what are these two big companies really doing over here? And it just stays on the service level, I see nothing but benefits out of this.
Yeah, I think you and I were just talking briefly off mic about the regulators. I see this, again, this is a partnership, not a acquisition. Oracle, like you said, will maintain their own servers. I think what this is doing basically is allowing Microsoft to offer its customers, as well as Oracle's customers, a single UI and and hopefully a better price for the two services. So we'll see what happens in the future, but I doubt that it's going to raise any red flags, regulatorily speaking.
I hope not. I know, and the only reason I bring that up is, with all the red flags with the Activision and a few other things we've seen over the past year, it just seems like everybody's throwing a flag up. When two companies get together and the Microsoft name is involved, there's somebody out there that throws a flag up. So let's hope they keep their
Hey,
flags down this time.
and to be honest with you, I invite the flags. I think everything should be scrutinized, and passed if legal and makes sense, and not passed. I mean, I'd rather see flags in the field than none, and then we wind up wondering
It's
why
true.
there's only AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile around, and we can't get better rates on our phones and plans and stuff like that.
Don't
What
even
else you got
get me
for us?
started there.
Moving on.
All right, yeah, let's get away from that one. Well, for the Starfield players out there, specifically those on PC, Starfield is really picking up quick on their updates. We've got DLSS upscaling, a field of view slider, and ultra wide monitor support for those that are on the extra large 32 by 9 screens. The patch number is 17.29. You've also got better HDR calibration support and brightness controls. I will say that I've been playing Starfield on PC. I'm roughly 7, 8, 9 hours in. I wanted a little bit of a different experience. We're lucky enough to have some Lenovo gaming PCs in for review, so I've been kind of giving those a test run on the game, and so far so good. The DLSS is certainly welcomed, and for those on lower spec PCs, it will be greatly welcome to allow you to get just a little bit more out of your graphics card and your CPU. So jump over there, get it patched, jump in there, let us know what you think.
Yeah. Moving on to less fun news, as we mentioned at the, just at our one of our headlines about regulatory issues. Microsoft's still facing them, just not in the Activision field drama. The EU may file formal complaints against Microsoft, despite Microsoft trying to unbundle Teams. Microsoft's video conferencing app Teams has caused some problems in the EU. We've talked about this about a couple months ago. The EU's antitrust enforcers are upset with Microsoft's behavior, about bundling Teams in general. And I want to say one of the first people to kind of blow the whistle on this might have been Slack, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And so Microsoft has tried to resolve the issue by basically saying they're going to separate it just in the EU, but the EU wasn't impressed. And according to a Bloomberg report, Microsoft's recent proposal to split its teams from the broader business software package of Microsoft 365 or Office 365 and sell it to customers separately with an annual discount wasn't enough to satisfy regulators' concerns, according to people familiar with the matter who spoke on a condition of anonymity, of course. The European Commission is preparing a statement of objections to send to the company, which could come in the next few months. We'll see, maybe October-ish. We'll find finally have something on the board. The EU investigators for Microsoft's team bundling are filing the complaints, not just for that, but also their other cloud initiative or other things like cloud initiatives where they are getting complaints from AWS and Amazon for, again, bundling. AWS doesn't have anything to really bundle at this point. I mean, they're trying their Office suite, but it's not any type of competitive solution. So they're free to complain about Microsoft bundling in Office. So we'll see what happens with that. There's also Nextcloud, GmbH in the EU, who has been complaining about OneDrive being bundled into Windows. I'm not sure how that's going to work, especially with some of the new things that Microsoft's about to do with OneDrive, how that stands, because it's the cloud storage system that ties into their operating system. But I guess because they charge for it, there's a complaint there. Last, we have Microsoft is under investigation by the EU's digital antitrust regulators, who are assessing whether or not its Bing, Edge, and advertising services should fall under the scope of the bloc's Digital Market Acts, which outlines regulations for major tech companies. So again, Microsoft is getting darts thrown at them from everywhere. I'm not passing any judgment whether or not these are valid, because again, these are legal terms, and I just mentioned earlier that I invite all the yellow flags in the field. So we'll see what ends up happening with all of these investigations and complaints.
It's all about competition. The lawyers over in Redmond are staying pretty busy, and I think what some of these companies are after you bundle these things together and you bind that all in one solution. And I think as a consumer and as a business, when you back up and you buy that solution, you're getting your Office, you're getting your file storage, you're getting your email. Now, notice how I said that. You're getting your file storage and you're getting your email. And there's these other companies out there going, hey, we want a slice of the file storage and the email. We're okay if somebody wants the Office suite, but we want, I think in the end, these other providers out there that are singular providers are trying to say, hey, why is this bundled together? Why are you necessarily forcing companies to use all of these services or forcing them to buy them? They should be able to buy what they want, and if they want somebody else's product for another service, they should be able to do that. So I'm like
I
you
mean,
go ahead.
yeah, I'm saying I'm of two minds of this. Like, I understand bundling, and I can understand how it puts specialized services and offerings at a disadvantage. But I think the advantage comes at the pricing, which is where the consumer basically has to do their own, obviously, research. So again, for something that's, if you're upset about Teams being bundled into Office 365, Microsoft 365, you still have to understand whether or not Team, it'd be different if the regulators are saying, okay, well, you've fundamentally broken how Slack works with Office. That is a violation, in my opinion, and should be, regulated. And if the solution is to unbundle them for that exact reason, I get that. But if it's, saying that, hey, it's not fair that you have an install base of however million for Office, and now you're giving them Teams, which is a competitor to our platform service. It's, as long as Slack can still work with Office, I don't see an issue here, especially if it forces Microsoft to also do it for free. If Teams comes free in Office 365 as a measure of being competitive with Slack, then I'm all for it. If they're going to sell it as a separate service as well as Office, I feel like you've, again, fundamentally broken what made the two stacks integrated for no other reason than to allow Slack to charge, not change its price at all. Like, I'm confused on that. But so, without belaboring the point and moving on to the rest of our headlines, I get bundling, but if Microsoft has found, breaking, using software, using developers to break its current arrangements with other third-party platforms, that's where I agree with everyone as far as investigating this.
I think ultimately it will be left as is. I can't see. Well, let me rephrase that. We've seen all kinds of things with the Activision Microsoft thing. I'm not going to say I can't see anything happening. I see things staying bundled. And the other part to that is when a business buys something, they buy sometimes on a whim. Okay, Microsoft, you can give us everything we need for this one flat rate, and then multiply it times our install base of 5,000 employees, and you're going to knock a few dollars off of that because we've got 5,000 employees. Okay, great. That they write the check, kind of like you said. They write the check, they get everything they need, or they think they need. The business doesn't necessarily have to do their own independent research at that point. So I get that part of it too, but I'm also on the fence in agreement with you is anytime this happens, raise the red flags and at least go take a peek into it to make sure nobody's getting an unfair advantage, because that unfair advantage may not show up now. It may show up years from now, and when it shows up then, it's a little harder to go backwards.
Totally agree. What else you got for us?
Well, we've got a new Xbox Live, or listen at me. Whoa. I just dated myself. We've got an Xbox Game Pass, a new service tier, if you will. They're calling it Game Pass Core, and it came out earlier this week on the 14th. And what they're saying is basically you're getting 25 games minimum out of the Game Pass catalog. So now we are at the point to where we have 4 Game Pass subscriptions, we have Core, which is what we're talking about here. Now, Core is $9.99 a month. We have Console, that is $10.99 a month. We have the PC, if you're just a PC player, and then we have the Ultimate, which includes the Xbox full membership plus the PC for $16.99. So if you're looking a cheaper way in and you're okay with just having access to 25, 26 games that Microsoft randomly chooses for $9.99 a month, Xbox Game Pass Core is certainly a good option. If you're just an online player and you play your own games and you're not necessarily worried about Game Pass, this is also a good way to just get your Xbox online, play your titles, have your fun, maybe not even worry with Game Pass.
There you go. I got a headline about OneDrive getting better offline functionality. We find this out via Microsoft's 365 roadmap. In a recent development, Microsoft's OneDrive has unveiled a new feature, which we call offline mode, to enhance user accessibility and productivity. The feature is identified as ID 168618, and it was officially added to the OneDrive roadmap this week, September 11th. And it's set to change how users kind of interact with their files offline. We've had files on demand, I think, for the last 4 years or so, maybe a little bit longer. And that's kind of where you can set individually files to be viewed, pulled from the cloud onto your device. But it serves as an icon to show you like, hey, you have this file, you can access it if you need to, and you can download it to your PC when necessary. But this is nowhere near what we're about to get with offline, which is actually, I think, what people really wanted. OneDrive users will be able to access and edit their files directly in the web browser, of all places, even without an internet connection. In offline mode, users are allowed to view, sort, rename, move, copy, and delete things within their file structure and their folders. Files marked as always available offline, and they will be stored locally and can be accessed and edited using web browsers, even without any active internet connection. Any offline changes will synchronize with OneDrive once the internet connection is restored. So for those of you who had to, run to a plane or had late-minute travel issues and you were trying to access files, you always had to be prepared before you got on or lost your internet connection. So you download them to your device, and then you can start making your changes. Then you re-upload them, which again, this all takes time depending on your Wi-Fi connection or your broadband accessibility. What they're saying now is you don't have to prepare for any of that. You'll just start working on it, and then when you get internet again, it will reconnect. So that's a good thing. I don't know how this works if your system goes down physically, like if it gets turned off, you run out of battery. If how those changes will be saved, they didn't get into that, but they were having a major event October 3rd to talk about all of this stuff, so we'll get more details about that. The rollout of this feature will occur in multiple phases, starting with the preview phase scheduled for November 23rd. The release will enter a targeted release phase for the entire organization and select individuals, and then finally it'll be generally rolled out to all OneDrive users sometime in December. So keep an eye out for the October 3rd event where they'll go into more details about this. And then if you happen to miss that, just sit back and wait till December 3rd when you'll be able to go out and play with it yourself.
Cool little feature. I'm glad to see this. I have been in the situation myself where you're in a car, you're in a hurry, you don't necessarily have your preferred internet connection, but you need to add something to a document, add something to a PDF, or update your presentation. So it's going to be nice to say, okay, got a presentation tomorrow. Let me go ahead and mark my PowerPoint file is offline. I can work on it at any point in time. And when I get to the office and I reconnect my network access, everything syncs and everybody's back in business. So been waiting a while for this one. Glad to see it.
Perfect. What's our last headline?
Well, if you are a Monday Night Football fan and you happen to know about a thing called Bing Chat, as if we have not discussed it enough, there was an ad this week during Monday Night Football that basically showed how you could use Bing Chat to prepare your dishes, foods, to get a little help with your fantasy football. And to me, that this was a little bigger than just the ad. This is the first time I had seen any type of AI-based, AI-based advertisement of any sort. So what does this tell us? We have talked about here on the podcast for the last couple of weeks that some of the statistics are showing that consumer usage of AI has kind of flattened out a little bit. So is Bing now going to start an advertising campaign to get the average consumer to go try out Bing Chat? We know businesses are playing with it because we've got Copilot out there. Businesses have gotten behind Copilot, but I have yet to see consumers say, hey, let's go jump on Bing Chat. Let's go jump on Bard. Let's go jump on Chat GPT. Microsoft has made the first move to spend the bucks to put Bing Chat during Monday Night Football, one of the biggest nights of the week. I think that's a good move.
I can't disagree with you. So I'm going to move on to our opening discussion, or I guess our final discussion of this podcast. And we'll be talking all things Surface because we have a Surface event coming up on this upcoming Thursday. So for those of you who have been living under a rock, come out, check out what Microsoft has to offer next week, and then you can go back under your rock. To start this off, we'll be actually having a moment of silence for the Surface Duo. Microsoft has officially stopped software support for this device. It launched about 3 years ago with Android 10 as its operating system. It got moved all the way to Android 12L, and that'll be its last official update. And the more certain thing about this is that you will not be getting any security updates going forward. So it's one thing to stop getting software support. It's another thing, usually even with Windows, you get software support, then you get a couple more years of security. You're done as of last Sunday. So for those of you who have original Surface Duo owners, last Sunday was the last update you may get. Who knows? Microsoft may be benevolent and push out something, but I doubt they're going to be pushing out anything as far as Android 13 or 14, which should be coming up, I believe, in October when they push out the next Pixel device. So good news is that it's Android 10 and all the apps that have been developed since I think Android 7 all work well on it. They work fine. The device still has gotten to a point where it's very usable. You didn't have NFC, so you still won't be using Wallet, and there's no way to upgrade that because that's a hardware thing. But if that's still your main driver, have fun with it because this isn't the end of the world. It's an Android device. I'm sure you'll still get a nice long run out of it, but officially speaking, don't expect updates and don't run to Reddit to complain about it because Microsoft kind of warned us about this.
Let's just hope the Duo 2 lasts a little bit longer.
Well, the Duo 2 has till next September, October-ish, I think, as well. So, prepare for that. Maybe we'll get Android 14 on it. Hopefully, we'll see how quickly this team can scramble back from whatever it was they were on as far as teams I think they were scheduled on to give us an update for that. And we'll see if there's any mention or hints maybe Thursday about a Surface Duo 3 or if their mobile ambitions are as dead as the Surface Duo.
I'm going to have to go with option 2 here, my friend. I don't want to, but I'm afraid that's what it's going to be.
Neither do I, but I am doing a write-up on the Galaxy Z Fold, so maybe that is where we will all safely land, just like those of us who had to jump from the Windows 10 mobile days had to land somewhere in Android. Maybe this is where we'll land again. Our next headline is about the Surface Pro and the Surface laptop being, not RSVPing to this event on Thursday. This is big news. Very much so. I agree with you, because we thought, last year they gave us a spec upgrade and fewer options, for the Surface laptop. We went from having options for AMD and Intel to just Intel. No changes to the chassis whatsoever. No additional ports. No reduction in weight. I think we got maybe a couple color options, and that was about it. So we were expecting Microsoft to kind of come out in 2023 with maybe an adjustment to the bezels if you're not going to change the port selection, maybe beef your battery somehow, or reduction in weight, something to warrant the kind of spec, the TikTok spec updates that we got for that. It looks like, according to a German-based publication, When Future, the Surface laptop won't even be around. And furthermore, the Surface Pro, their flagship device, after following a kind of celebration of the 10-year anniversary, The Surface Pro, what would have been the 10, I believe, will not be around. So for those of you expecting to see Surface Laptop or Surface Pro upgrades, it has been very quiet on the front for that, and we do not know why. Maybe Microsoft is just holding that closer to the vest than anything, but at least as of today, it looks like we will only be getting updates for the Surface Laptop Studio, Surface Go 4, the Surface Laptop Go, and maybe some accessories. It's going to be a weird showing for Microsoft on Thursday.
I'm a little concerned about this because we're not, that they may surprise us. They may come out and put something up on stage. Who knows? They may put something different up on stage that we don't know about. But if we follow the typical Microsoft event, I'm not expecting that, and it concerns me that we're not seeing the Surface Pro. Let's see, the 9 is the one that's on the market. We're not seeing the 10, and we're not getting the 13th gen Intel CPU. So what is that saying? Are we skipping 13 in the Pro, or will there be a Pro or a laptop? Because we're already mid-September when we're having this event. I doubt Microsoft is going to speak again or have any other events this year. They may, but it's not typical. So are we skipping, or are we doing something different, or is this something that you and I discussed several podcasts ago? We've got the Duo slipping out the door. The Duo 2 could be next. What's Microsoft's overall goal and overall interest in being in the hardware circle in terms of PCs and PC products? Sure, I want to hold a Surface in my hand as much as you do. I like the product. I like the form factor. I like the build quality. But what are they offering that I can't go buy somewhere else? That's the catch. And I'm wondering what their interest level is. Are they as interested in staying in there? What are they showing us, which you're about to talk about, I think, the Surface Laptop Studio? Nobody's got anything like that. Well, that appears like what you're getting ready to talk about. That's what we're going to see. So what does this mean for the future?
Yeah, our last headline is actually, I want to say, but 3 days after we wrote about the emission for the Pro and the laptop, we got confirmation from same German-based publication, OneFuture, who, again, they're getting their sources from marketing material from third-party retailers for this story, is that there will be, like I said, the Surface Laptop Studio 2, and not only will it be there, and we'll have all of the spec bumps that we talked about as far as 64 gigabytes of memory option, the 13th gen Intel H series, Core i7, Core i9 CPUs, and the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4000 series GPUs.
Should be the 4060, 4070, and maybe
Correct.
A 4080.
Yeah, maybe. It's getting all of that. But on top of that, it's actually getting its ports back. I mean, well, I guess it never had to begin with, but it's getting new ports. It's getting a USB-A and a micro SD. They're fitting it alongside the ports that are existing, so it's going to be right on that weird ridge that the Surface Laptop Studio 2 or Surface Laptop Studio originally has. But you'll now be able to, if you're a photographer, connect your all your old USB-A connectors to that, or just pop in a micro SD to make use of that new GPU and bump in memory. Other than that, it still remains relatively unchanged as far as the look of it. So for those of you who are hoping for thinner bezels, not the case this time around. You'll be getting the same 14.4 inch pixel sense touch display at still at 33:2 aspect ratio with 120 hertz variable refresh rate thanks to Windows. The other thing that we're going to be getting is the Surface Laptop Go 3, which is interesting because, again, we're not getting a Surface Laptop. We're getting the Surface Laptop Go, which is their commercial slash education device. It'll be getting a bump in specs, which we've already talked about. 256 gigabyte SSD as the base model, 8 gigabytes of memory as the base memory option. You'll be getting a Core i5 1235U processor. So, and I think that will be last year's processor. So you're not, I don't think you're getting the 13th gen one as of that. So, and I think there will be some additional color options that they show, but the chassis looks exactly the same as last year's. So there's no change in that. And then we'll also be, I guess, getting word about, again, I don't know if they're going to be selling this or marketing this as broadly, is the Surface Go 4. And that's the, entry-level Surface Pro-ish type device, the 2-in-1, the smaller one, the 10.5-inch one. That will be getting the Intel N200 processor over the AMD one or ARM one that we're all kind of hoping for. Again, these devices don't come with fans, so it wasn't necessarily an issue, so to speak. They did get hot a little bit. Maybe the N200 will deal with that. There have been no images leaked on that. Now, for all of that we're talking about, for all of these leaks or whatever about the hardware, you can go see, there's a write-up on our website about it, and go check out all the images. We don't have any of the Surface Go 4, and that is mainly because, and I believe this is coming from our buddy Zach Bowden over at Windows Central, his sources are saying that it's going to be sold commercially. This is kind of like what they did with the Surface Pro 8, I believe, and they had a business version of this. So you will only be able to get it through their business channels from the Microsoft Store itself, and I believe that's what's going to happen with the Surface Go 4. So for those of you who were hoping to get an updated version of this, you just have to be aware that you won't be able to just go on Microsoft's website, consumer website. You'll have to go to their business channel to purchase it directly from them for that, if you're going to be doing it at all. That's the news that we have for what's going to be happening Thursday. I would just, to wrap this up, wanted to not only say that it's going to be a weird presentation, but the way that Microsoft's presenting this is very different than previous ones. And it's also different from what Apple just recently did. Apple kind of invited everyone to their campus. They sat them down, they watched a video, and then they got some hands-on with the device, and the video was streamed. Microsoft's presentation on Thursday will not be streamed. You're basically getting press releases from all your favorite YouTubers, influencers, tech journalists, or whatnot, talking about what they got to see in person. It's very weird that they won't stream it. Maybe it's because they felt like, there's nothing to really show, especially if you're not going to have the Pro, your flagship computing devices up front. I was talking to our editor-in-chief about this being potentially a press release in and of itself. It seems that, Microsoft has done that before, and they've done it for things that have had more significant changes than this. And on top of that, they've also done this thing where they've taken time to refine a commercial version of a device. So while we may not be getting a Surface Pro 10, we may be getting a Surface Pro 9S or whatever, and that's the business version that'll show up in January, perhaps. And I don't know what they're gonna do for the laptop, because that's always been a consumer version of a device. But to your point about the Pro 10, we may just get a Pro 9 enterprise version of it in January. So
that was what they did with
that's
what they did with the 7. If you remember, there was
7, correct, yes.
If you remember, there was a 7 and a 7 Plus. The 7 Plus had the LTE option because there were a lot of consumers that were, wanted the LTE option and weren't complaining, that they didn't make that option available. So you're right, we may see a 9S, maybe we see it with an LTE option or some other, maybe they include the pin in the box or something, to make it more business centric. But I'm gonna be watching this one a little closer than normal, because like you were saying, I've got this weird vibe. You and I have been doing this for many years. By now, we're starting to see leaks. We're starting to see photos. We have seen this from WinFuture, of course, but everything seems to be, we're less than a week away. Everything seems too quiet.
Agreed. Yeah, it's like I said, it's very uncommon that Microsoft has this much leak before an event, especially confirmed, and then also without streaming it. They're not. It doesn't seem like they're planning on a big surprise. Usually if you're going to leak this much and you stream, it's like, okay, and then we got one more thing, and here is the Surface Neo. Without being able to stream anything, you're basically inviting your press release staff and all of the journalists and whatnot to come in and see what you have, get some hands on. But to what degree? Because nothing's really changed to have them, kind of run back and say, "Oh, you got to see the new device." Like I said, Apple added a USB port. They added titanium to the phone. Other than that, the phone's pretty much the same. The watches are pretty much the same. They still invited people to get hands-on because they felt it was a significant enough change for that. Adding a USB-A port on a laptop isn't a big thing. Adding micro SD isn't a big thing. Thinner bezels, new design, lighter weight. Those are the kind of things that you can express as a writer, as a journalist, with a hands-on. What they're doing now to me feels like, again, they could have just said, "Hey, we have these new devices. They'll be up for pre-order. Go get them next week," and shown the pictures, and people could, determine for themselves, like, "Hey, I want the one with the USB-A. I want the one that has 64 gigabyte options. I want the one that comes with, the improved base models." But there really doesn't seem to be very much to have or to be excited for on Thursday. And I'm not saying that you need to be. These are appliances at this point. We reach peak computing, I suppose, or at least design and form with laptops and stuff like that. So, like you said, maybe we're just hoping for something. We're being optimistic and digging for maybe there's a bit more. But we do know that Satya Nadella and panelists will be on hand for this. So that makes me wonder. You brought out the big guns, but you won't show people what they're capable of. It'll be definitely a head scratcher on Thursday.
And they could fool us. They may have a surprise somewhere in the back door. And I think as Microsoft enthusiasts and journalists, we kind of look at this as, anytime Microsoft is on stage, you and I are hopeful of seeing something, of seeing a step forward, of seeing something move. But if you look back and you even take Apple out of the equation, when Dell comes out with something new, when HP comes out with something new, when Asus comes out with something new, they don't do a big fanfare either. Now, Lenovo does their webinars, but the webinars are, basically read the spec sheets of what the devices are. So I'm expecting that we're going to get a press release. This is what it is. But there'll be nothing to push the retail side of it, if that makes sense. Because a lot of people, go to the presentation, you see something, or you watch it, or you stream it, and you go, "Oh, they show," and I'm going to show my Apple side here for just a minute. The demos is what sells people. They see it do something. They see the feature mentioned. Yes, I would like that. Or yes, that applies to what we do every Thursday night, as a family. Let's go buy that. So I think when you do it this way, you're also missing the consumer side of it. And I think that's why Apple does, regardless of our opinions, I think that's why Apple does what they do, with these presentations, because they'll give it their name. I'm surprised the USB-C port doesn't have a, USB-C Pro or a Apple Lightning Pro, name on it or something like that. But I'll give Apple a little bit of credit. When they show their demos, it applies to people. People see it. Yes, I want to do that. They go buy it. The fact that Microsoft is not showing anything this time, at least beyond the auditorium or wherever they'll be, it's a little bit concerning.
Yeah, as a consumer, but we have always said since we've been starting this whole business, the Microsoft customers are business people, they're enterprise people. With 64 gigabytes of memory, these devices are going to be, more for engineers and people who delve in, machine learning and large database processing. The added GPU could be used for content creators as well. But again, these are still different niches than your typical consumer. I will end on this, at least for my part, that Microsoft will be sparing us a half hour of back padding for their carbon emissions referendums and processes. For those of you who missed the Apple event, thank your lucky stars you didn't have to sit through that, because that was a bit of a snooze fest. Microsoft and pretty much every other company did what Apple did as a press release. They decided to have a skit for some reason. With no actual live event, maybe this is Microsoft saving us from that and offering a separate press release that'll say we're going to offset our carbon emissions by making our mouses out of plastic like we've been doing for the past couple of years. So to their credit, I will take that if that means I don't have to sit through more back padding.
I agree. That was a little concerning earlier this week in the Apple. The presentation itself, and I'll leave here. The presentation itself felt thin to me, but it also felt odd that we were talking about our new environmental approach. It seemed like every couple minutes.
Very much so. They hammered that way too often, I think. Maybe compensating for something. Who knows? With that being said, where can people find you? Oh, actually, let's go to our hardware section. I always forget that. We have hardware. I have hardware. Next week I'll be releasing my Fold experiences, both the Flip and the Z Fold 5. I will, have reviews individually and comparatively for those. That'll be the main focus for next week. I do still have a Dell XPS 13 Plus that I'm finishing up a review for. I just finished up my review for the ThinkPad X1 Nano Gen 3. It's a great device, but not for anybody that isn't a C-suite executive who just needs a thin laptop to kind of review files and make decisions with. It's got a lot of power, but it's also got some throttling that could upset some people if they're trying to do more. Like I said, I got a boom mic that I'm reviewing, a microphone as well, and those will be coming out the week after. So for those of you who are just wondering, like, what will you be reviewing? Next week will be dedicated to just the folds. So if you are interested about any of the folds and how that works in a Microsoft environment, I use a lot of stuff like Office and PowerPoint and things like that. Having 2 apps at once on that screen was amazing. And then just the day-to-day, putting it in a pocket, putting it in a bag, the weight of it and all that kind of stuff, I will address in that review. What can people anticipate for you for next week, if you have anything?
Well, yep, I've got a couple things. Let's get some input on both of these. If you've listened this far down in our podcast, thank you. And I've got a few things that if you would like to leave some comments or find me on Twitter, and I'll put the handle out there in just a minute. I'm going to be working on a comparison. I have already wrote my single reviews. I've just got to clean them up a little bit. I'm working on a comparison between the Lenovo Legion Pro 7, and that is the laptop, and the Lenovo 5i desktop. Now, what we're doing here is a little bit of a comparison. We're going to use Starfield and maybe throw in a Call of Duty, some playing this game on my laptop, playing this game on my desktop, and kind of help you decide what's the best way to spend your money. Is the trade-off that you're going to get, and I don't want to spoil it, but the trade-off is not as much as I originally thought. The trade-off for the laptop and performance worth the difference in being able to sit at a desk and get the full performance. So before I put all that out there, feel free to drop a note, find me on Twitter. I'm interested to know what you guys want, because that's, how we do these reviews. If there's something you guys want to see, let us know. I'm happy to do it, and I know you are with feedback. If somebody wants something, we're always willing to investigate it.
So what's that handle they can hit up if they want to give you some feedback?
David PHA 1978. I'm still gonna call it Twitter. I'm sorry. I'm over on Twitter or X, whatever you'd like to call it. Drop by. Some of you dropped by this week and left me some DMs with some ideas. I appreciate those, and I have put some of those in the review that you're about to see.
I'm going to call it Twitter as well, because when you go to the website, you type in x.com, nothing shows up. When you type in twitter.com, surprisingly, X shows up. So it's Twitter to me. You can find me at Mindhead1 on Twitter, Kareem Anderson on Threads, for those of you who are hanging out there. With that being said, thank you for joining us for another long pod full of information. I hope it wasn't a downer about the Surface Duo stuff. We tried to be positive. You can still play with the device. We're also anticipating. We're also excited for new Surface hardware. Just to hear Panos get pumped about something we haven't heard from him since build, I believe. So it's always nice to see what he's got to say. Go enjoy your weekend. We will see you next week. We may even do a special follow-up pod based on the information from the Surface event. So stay tuned for that information as well.
Have a good weekend, folks.
See you guys later.